Hey, what's going on, everybody? Um, Wanted to come on here and do something a little bit different. If you've been a fan of our page here for a while, you probably recognize me from Buffalo Bill recaps. But I'm also the guy that's been behind all the NASCAR content on the page, and with this past weekend's race at Richmond and just the craziness and other adjectives you can use to describe that finish, with that being in the news and being everywhere on your major sports platforms, I figure I'd do a quick little I guess rundown of it, give my thoughts, my takes on it. um, I'm recording this on Tuesday afternoon. It's 5 o'clock. Bob Pockris just came out and said NASCAR will not um, release any penalty information today. Normally Tuesdays are when they release that information. That's why I waited to do this today, to react to that as well. But they're saying Wednesday at the earliest, so that tells me that A, there's some penalties coming, and B, it's probably not going to be Wednesday. So we'll I'll give my thoughts on it. I mean, I'll preface everything by saying I'm a Joey Logano fan. I have been a Logano fan his entire career. I've started following him when he was driving ARCA cars and in the Joe Gibbs developmental program. Obviously followed him from his time at Joe Gibbs, and now he's at Penske and two-time Cup Series champion. So I'm not a bandwagon fan by any means. So, but I will preface, obviously, since he was a big part of what happened. Just give that disclaimer. But in case for some reason you did not see the finish to this past Sunday's race in Richmond, I guess before we even get to the finish, I'll just say, it was pretty apparent. Second half of the race, the best car on the racetrack was Austin Dillon, the 3 car, um, which is shocking because if you follow NASCAR at all, Austin Dillon is not. He's not a contender. He's never a guy that you expect to see in the top 10, let alone competing for wins. He's normally a guy that's fighting to crack the top 20. But man, they showed up this weekend to Richmond. They had a fast car. I believe he was fastest in practice, qualified inside the top 10, and he was up front most of the race. So he had the fastest car the second half of the race, and certainly the last 50 laps. He drove up, he caught Denny Hamlin, passed him clean, set sail, and with 2 to 3 laps to go, there's a late caution, and that throws everything into a wrench. And we go to NASCAR overtime, green, white, checkered, and that's when it all breaks. Just all etiquette, all any driving skill, that it went out the window. So coming off pit road, Austin Dillon first off pit road, Joey Logano was second, Denny Hamlin was third, and it was basically as simple as Joey Logano beat Austin Dillon off the restart line. He had he was just better at it, and took the lead away from Austin Dillon, brought the field back around, saw the one to go, and going into turn 3, Austin Dillon pulled just the sorriest excuse of a move he could have to try and win the race, and went into turn 3 and just dive bombed the corner. He had literally no intention of trying to make that corner, except for the sole purpose of taking out the 22 car, which he did. He got to the back of Logano, spun him around, and as those two make contact, Denny Hamlin starts to make his way past them, and it looks like Denny Hamlin's going to win. And then Austin Dillon gathers his car up and then hangs a sharp left, right rear hooks Denny Hamlin, puts him in the wall, and Austin Dillon wins the race. And there was a lot there was a lot of anger from a lot of people associated with the 22, the 11, and it's all justified, man. It was absolutely terrible. We're gonna try and put the highlight of what I'm talking about here, as I'm talking about it. But I mean, it was just it was not what NASCAR was founded upon. That's just, you see people be like, oh man, that's what we're used to seeing the number 3 car do back when Earnhardt drove it. He whatever it took to win the race, man. That's like, first of all, Earnhardt Earnhardt was up front every week. Okay, he was a threat to win every week. Austin Dillon, this was the first time in 68 races, 2 years, that he has won a race. And other than that, like I said, he's mid-pack. So the Earnhardt comparisons are just dumb. It's frustrating when NASCAR is they're in this, I don't want to call it a transitional period, but they've had a lot more eyes on them these last few seasons. A lot of it has to do with Bubba Wallace bringing in a new fan base, and then they reach out to change the clash venue, and they run that in LA. So that's a whole new, group of fans that typically doesn't, check in with NASCAR. And then obviously, they did that Netflix series to try and bring more eyes to it. So they're kind of in this position where they're trying to get as many people into the sport as they can. And newer fans don't know what traditional NASCAR racing is, what racing used to look like back in the 90s. And it's sad because there's a lot of people defending what Austin Dillon did, saying, he did whatever it took to win the race. And that's not racing. That's just, I've heard people call it, that's wrestling, that's demolition derby, it's crap. And take out the fact that it happened to Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, probably two of the most disliked drivers in NASCAR. If you would have replaced those with, say, a Kyle Larson and a William Byron, and that's who Austin Dillon took out, there would be an uproar calling for Austin Dillon's head. And it's not the case, just because, like I said, people don't like Hamlin, they don't like Logano. And I see a lot of people also with the argument saying, oh well, Hamlin and Logano, they've had their share of run-ins with other drivers for wins. Yes, to an extent that's true. However, people bring up look at what Joey Logano did to William Byron at Darlington in 2022. It's such a bad take, a lazy take. First off, they're going to show you the highlight of Logano hitting the back of Byron, moving him out of the way, taking the lead, and he'd go on to win the race. What they don't show you is that the restart before William Byron drives Logano into the wall to clear. Okay, so that's racing. He got his, so I'm going to get mine. Payback. And then obviously they'll pick and choose other instances, but every other instance, the other guy has finished the race, and it wasn't like Logano dove bomb him because he wasn't close enough. Any other contact that people are using as their reference or their argument, he's been there. He was right on their bumper or side by side with them. So it is what it is. But yeah, I'm sad for the new fan that thinks this is normal racing. It's not. Yeah, I guess it's it is the new normal racing, but um, it's a product of what NASCAR's become in terms of how you can win a championship nowadays. It's, you know, the way that the playoffs are set up. It's win a race and you're automatically in the playoffs, and that's all Austin Dillon saw. He's like, I haven't won a race in 2 years. I can go from 32nd in points, because that's where he was at, and if I win this race, the worst I can finish is 16th, because the NASCAR playoffs are up the top 16 drivers. And if the stars aligned and miracle after miracle happened, he could luck his way into a championship. Like, that's the problem with the current today NASCAR state. But I feel like that could be a whole separate video. You know, there's been plenty of times where guys have lucked their way in and went on to win a championship. Now, obviously, that won't happen with Austin Dillon. He'll be a first round exit, but it's more of a stain on the fact that you can have a guy that was 32nd in points, ran mid-pack all season long, and they show up, they have one good weekend, they win the race in controversial fashion, but they win the race, and now they jump 16 points in the playoffs, or in the standings, and now they're in the playoffs. So a lot of people are justifying it as, you know, well, that's the format. You know, he had to do what he had to do, is the BS slogan going around, and it's not accurate. It's just, he chose to do that. You know, then after he gets out of the car and he's like, man, I hate I had to do it, but I had to do it. And like, it's so tone deaf and aggravating, and you know, there's a lot of other expressions I could use, but you know, we'll keep this a family friendly page. But you know, then the other issue I take exception with is, like I said, after everything was said and done, you start to get some audio footage leaked from, you know, from the spotter to Austin, and you hear him tell him before he makes contact with Logano, he says, whatever it takes to win. So then he takes out Logano, and then it's after he takes out Logano, you hear the spotter go, wreck him, talking about Hamlin. So then Hamlin gets wrecked, and so it's a terrible look. And then after all is said and done, Richard Childress, the owner, also Austin Dillon's grandfather, you know, comes on the radio and was like, oh, Pop's proud of you. Like you're such a tone-deaf organization, and if you can sit back and be proud of how you won that race, then congratulations, man, because you're a hack. You know, that was the term that Denny Hamlin coined a couple years ago, and I mean, it's what he was. I mean, that was a chicken move, and has no place in the sport. But I guess now all we can do is wait and see what NASCAR decides. You know, per their rule book, he should be penalized. The win should not count. But I highly doubt they take the win away from him. And if they don't take the win away from him and they allow him to keep his playoff spot, then anything else you do to that guy, he will laugh at it and pay whatever fine and do whatever, because you know what? He won the race and he qualifies for the playoffs. So really the only thing that NASCAR could do that would deter Austin Dillon or any other driver from pulling that move in any other situation would be to take the win away. Or if you're not going to take the win away, let him keep the win, but take away his playoff spot, because he didn't earn it. And the sad part, the other sad part about this whole thing is that, like I said, he had probably the best car. He was 2 to 3 laps away from winning this race legitimately, and we not having this conversation. But instead, he got beat off a restart because he's not good enough. And rather than be like, man, you know what, I got beat, he said, no, I'm gonna take out 2 other cars and I'm gonna steal. So it's I don't know. I've been stewing on this for 2 days, and this is about as calm as I've been about the whole situation. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what NASCAR says. I don't see them taking away a win. I don't see them taking away a playoff spot. I feel like they're gonna do what NASCAR's done most recently, and they're just gonna be like, okay, well, that's $100,000 fine, and even if they suspend him a race, like, then what? What does that do? Because they're gonna give in and give him a waiver into the playoffs. So it's like I said, the only thing that will hurt him is to either take the win away or to take away his playoff spot. So, but I've listened to Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin. I wanted to hear his thoughts on it, because obviously he was one of the guys a part of the wreck. And he's said and has the same stance that I do. There's a lot of other people in the sport that have voiced similar arguments. So I don't know if it's a good sign that NASCAR hasn't released the report yet, when they normally do on Tuesdays, but we'll see. Obviously, whenever the news is broke or they decide on what they're going to do, we'll upload it or update the page and keep everybody informed. It's been encouraging to see a lot more NASCAR engagement on the page. I've been trying to bring a different audience to the page. It's mainly baseball and football, so I've been trying to build the racing group. So I appreciate everybody tuning in, following along with the page. I see everybody's comments every week on all my posts. I always try to go through and make sure that I'm reaching people how I've been trying to get out. So appreciate everybody tuning in, following along on the page. And if NASCAR videos are something that you'd like to see going forward or whatnot, make sure to let us know in the comments, man. So I guess we'll see y'all soon. All right, breaking news. This is Wednesday, 5 o'clock. NASCAR just came out. They finally have issued the penalty report, and for once, it's a rare NASCAR win. They did their job. They actually enforced the rules, and they have announced that they've stripped Austin Dillon of his playoff spot. They're going to let him keep the win. He gets to keep the trophy, but the win no longer locks him into the NASCAR playoffs. And in addition to stripping the playoff eligibility, they were also going to take 25 driver and 25 owner points from the 3-team, as well as Austin Dillon's spotter is going to be suspended 3 races. And to me, I think that's as harsh as NASCAR could have possibly went. I mean, they weren't going to take the win away from him. They don't have a history of doing that. So I think this was the next best thing they could have done, and now it basically just is a meaningless win on the Austin Dillon resume. So, my opinion, NASCAR got it right. They also announced that they fined Joey Logano $50,000 for doing a burnout in front of the 3 teams pit box after the race. So yeah, that's what took them so long. They said they went through all the data, wanted to make sure they got everything right. And I think they did. I think that's as strict and as harsh as they could have possibly went without taking the win away. So at the end of the day, Austin Dillon went from 32nd to 31st in points. That's basically, and he got a cool trophy. Other than that, it was really, I guess, in the end, not worth it to wreck your opponents, because NASCAR for once had a backbone and stood up and enforced the rules. So, yeah, now we're on to Michigan. 3 races to the playoffs. Here we go.